Okay, so we should be live now. It's always the first. How many times do I make this joke? Oh, the first 5 minutes of my live is always me talking about whether or not we're live. So this is me continuing on a little series I've been doing about the Prosperous Coach. And I'm just reading the Prosperous Coach and kind of giving my thoughts on it, decoding it or expanding on it, if you will. It's just such a seminal book in the world of coaching, and it says a lot for us to take from it, and also some things that have missed or changed since the book has originally been written. So today we're reading chapter 2, Without a Client, You're Not a Coach, and this is by Steve Chandler. I've been running my coaching prosperity school for years with remarkable results. Students learn to sell their services at levels they never thought possible. My school was the only coaching school that didn't teach you how to coach. It focused all of its time and energy on only one thing: acquiring your next client. My own life was completely turned around by coaching, and like a mad scientist who found a cure for cancer, I wanted to give that treatment, that turnaround back. So I began coaching coaches on how to build prosperous practices. Because a coach without a client is not a coach. I know. I have been there. How did that sorry state get cured? By my own coach, the ultimate coach, Steve Hardison. Now I want to give coaches everywhere what he gave me. It's not enough for coaches to simply be good coaches. If you are a coach reading this book, I want to make you as good of an enroller as you are a coach. For your client's sake, for the sake of humanity itself. Coaching can only help civilization if there are clients. No one has been coach as I have, and now all I have is yours. I started my coaching prosperity schools because there was one thing missing in our profession, and was the most important thing of all: a coach's ability to build a client list. A coach's mastery of the client acquisition process. It was missing. Coaches were all gung-ho about learning to be great coaches. They went to school, read books, listened to powerful audios, got certifications, even got coaches who taught them to coach better. But the big missing was still missing. How do I get a client? How do I sell without being afraid? Sales fear, call reluctance, money fear, confusion of service with personal worthiness, all diseases inside the coaching profession. Many times these diseases were fatal. Coaches gave up. One brilliant coaching I know gave up and started selling cars. The Center for Disease Control, actually what I call the victim centers known as coaching associations, put out a bleak and troubling statistic about how the average coach was making less than minimum wage, a stunning thing. Meanwhile, the coaches in my school were reporting weekly billings of $3,000, $5,000, and often $10,000. One coach in the most recent school reported a $50,000 week. And one of my school graduates now routinely earns 7 figures a year at coaching. Although when he came to me 4 years ago, he could not make himself sell. I think my best student ever was Rich Litvin. He was a brilliant coach. In my school, he was dazzling in the way he could interact with other coaches. In mere minutes, he could change their view of the world from one based on fear to one full of possibility. The only thing missing in Rich's life was income. Once he got the hang of what this book will teach you, he soared. Soon he was teaching others how to succeed. Clients, and he had a lot of them, raved about him. They were high-paying clients too. Soon Rich and I were doing seminars together. It wasn't long before I was actually learning from him. When he got up to talk in our seminars, I never left the room. I just got my notebook out and learned. Now it's your turn. And it ends with this inscription: show your clients what they cannot see, say to your clients no one else would dare to say, and you will have all the clients you ever desire. All right, so good chapter. I want to acknowledge again, the first part of this book is a lot of a bit of a sales pitch for the Prosperous Coach technique. So if you didn't pick up on that, just notice that that's there. But Steve makes some great points in this chapter, and I want to really call some of them out. So first of all, he talks about why people get into coaching. And he shares his experience of getting into coaching, which I think is an experience that a lot of people have, which is that I got into coaching to change lives, right? I got into coaching because I was served by a coach or someone made an impact on me. And now I want to serve or show that impact to other people. So that's really, really key and really important. And it's a point that's often lost in the realm of coaching, is why we become coaches and why becoming a coach actually matters, right? It's because we got present to possibility or the impact in our lives, and now we want to share that impact with others. So he touches on it very briefly, but I think that this importance or the centrality of this in the Prosperous Coach methodology and the centrality of this as who you are as a coach is incredibly important. Because as you go through the challenges and the difficulties of becoming and being a coach, your ability to keep this central fact clear that you became a coach to change lives is incredibly important. There's so much you can get distracted by in the realm of coaching. There's marketing stuff, there's personal development stuff, there's coach trainings. This centrality of I have something that's really vital that can change lives is something that can really inspire you as a coach. And Steve does a beautiful job of calling that out and talking about why it's really important to him. And he makes this other really incredible point, which is that coaching isn't enough. So I talk to a lot of coaches who do a ton of trainings, and I want to draw a distinction here between getting trained and actually being a great coach. And I'm going to talk about that more in a minute. But I know a lot of coaches that train, but they never do the difficult work of actually going out and getting clients. So if you are not working with clients, this life-changing technology you have of coaching, which is an incredible technology, isn't being used, right? It's like you have a vaccine, but no, you're not giving it to anyone. You have a cure for a disease, but you're not treating anybody with it. And so this second part of this, which coaches often want to put to the side and say, well, I want to be a great coach. And why can I get clients by being a great coach? Which again, there's a bit of a misnomer in the Prosper Coach there, but I'll talk about that in a minute as well. You have to get good at the enrolling part. Now, in the way I talk about coaching, I actually say that enrolling is actually just another form of coaching. It's a certain kind of coaching around commitment, which the Prosper Coach doesn't really talk about that much. And in a way, I would say the Prosper Coach is another sort of sale avoidant book, and it sort of dodges the way you traditionally sell. It has this sort of central idea of like, just coach really great and then they'll want to buy from you, or serve people a lot and then they'll want to buy from you. And there is some truth to that, but that can become a bit of a misnomer. I think I've watched and studied both how Steve sells and the way Rich sells, and they actually do a lot of sales stuff in how they do enrollment. They just don't talk about it, and they don't elucidate it very clearly in the book. And so I think if you can understand that stuff, it can be really helpful. The other thing is that while this point is really true, that most coaches don't learn how to enroll, the industry has really shifted since the Prosperous Coach got created, right? Now there are a ton of coaches out there only talking about getting clients, right? That's sort of a big focus in the industry. And if you join a coaching group, you've probably been bombarded by 10, 20, 30, 40 people wanting to be your friend and then sell you into their coaching program about how to get 10 clients in 30 days or whatever, right? So that has really shifted. And I would say that both parts for industry, both the training part is really lacking, as well as the stuff we have now around enrollment. But I think that the point that Steve really has here and that he's making is about the importance of enrollment as a part of becoming a really masterful coach. It's not just about being a good coach. You also have to know how to build a business. And that again, central to this idea of if you want to go change people's lives, it's not enough to be good at coaching. You have to be good at enrolling clients as well. And I love how he really talks about moving from fear to possibility, right? He does a beautiful job of creating this in the chapter. And he talks about his clients going from fear around sales, from fear around enrollment, to fear around coaching, to the possibility of creating a bunch of clients. And he really centralizes or makes really important. It's about application, right? It's about going out and doing this stuff in the world, applying, serving people, not just having this internal knowledge is not enough. You have to go out and do this stuff. So it's a good chapter. And I love it. And it offers a lot of inspiration. There are a few things that is missing. And I would say that the first thing that's missing is desire to coach isn't enough. Right. So the Prosperous Coach method is largely based on your ability to coach. So if you look at the way the Prosperous Coach method is set up, you do a bunch of service, you give away a bunch of free coaching, and then off of the back of that free coaching, you enroll people. My experience is going out and having been to a lot of Rich Lippman events and doing a lot of speed coaching is most coaches they're fine. They're okay coaches. They're not bad. They're journeyman coaches, right? And that's not really necessarily a problem. Even a journeyman coach can have a really powerful impact on people. But when you create a sales process where you're putting a lot of attention and pressure on how powerfully you serve people, if you don't serve them really powerfully, if you don't blow them away with your coaching, if your coaching isn't really exquisite, if you don't really create possibility for them that's really powerful, then you're going to have a really hard time selling them on the back of that coaching. And part of it is that the consumer in the coaching space has gotten more and more sophisticated. They've seen more coaches, they have more concept of personal development, they've read more about coaching, they've had more experience of it themselves. They've started to notice the difference between pretty good coaching and really great coaching. And there is a vast difference, even though the technique and the things you need to do differently are actually quite small. The difference between being kind of a mediocre coach and a great coach is pretty vast. And you probably had that experience too. You probably talked to 2 or 3 coaches if you've gone to shop your own coaches. Some of them are fine. Some of them kind of dazzle you with their marketing. Maybe you hire one of those coaches and you're a bit disappointed. But a lot of coaches are, sort of like, ask you a few questions, sort of okay. But then every now and again, you talk to a coach and it's really different. There's something about their being that's really different. There's something about the way they relate to you that's really different. There's a way that they see you, the way they draw things out of you, the way they ask questions that's really, really powerful. And it's a combination of both their being and their skill, right, that makes that big difference. And so while Steve kind of is pointing us away from skill, I think that, and the time period where this was written, that was really appropriate. I think there is really now a need or a need for this to go back. And a lot of the coaches that I see out there trying to apply the Prosperous Coach method, the one big thing is their coaching just isn't good enough for it to work, right? It really isn't solid enough to be sold off the back of their coaching. So they either need one to combine their coaching with a bit of sales technique, right? To have the client buy into this long-term possibility, buy into their own commitment, right? They need to be able to have this conversation around commitment with clients, which is a bigger conversation. Or 2, they need to really improve their coaching. And ideally, they actually need to do both. They need to develop some abilities, some comfort with having this conversation around commitment, a deeper comfort than I think even the Prosperous Coach works. Or if you really are just like, I'm a Prosperous Coach person, I want to focus solely on that you can be really successful, but you really got to get your coaching great. You really got to nail your being in. Okay. The other thing that's really interesting about this chapter is if you don't pay attention to it, they do a lot of really like traditional sales stuff in this chapter. So 1, they offer a lot of information gaps. So if you notice, Steve talks about his clients having success. Most coaches aren't making minimum wage. My coaches are making $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $10,000 a month. You notice that he doesn't explain how that's happening. He just puts it in there, right? Rich talks about that a little bit in the first chapter as well, but it's a clever marketing thing called the information gap, right? So now at the beginning of the book, you've read, their clients are getting this incredible results, but it doesn't tell you how. Well, you want to know, right? And this isn't a bad thing. There's a way you could look at this as like, this is really manipulative, right? They're tricking me into reading the book. But what Rich and Steve understand so well in the writing of this book is that if you are not compelled to read the book, you won't get the results, right? So it's actually a little bit of a meta thing happening inside the chapter. So if you do not have clients, you're not a coach. If you don't continue to read the book, you won't get the benefit from it. So it's clever that they put it in there, but I just want you to really notice that a lot of people who are in the Prosperous Coach community are like, marketing is bad and this stuff is manipulative and it's all about service. And that stuff is true. But even in this book, right, there's these little things in there that draw you deeper into the book. So again, Rich and Steve are incredibly masterful at adding in these marketing or sales techniques in there, that they do it in a way that's really authentic, that's really focused on service. It's not really sleazy. It's not weird. And that's why it's so effective. That's one of the things that drew me to this methodology. But be clear, they're using a lot of the same techniques that a lot of what we'd call unethical marketers use. The techniques themselves are sort of neutral, right? They're not good or bad. They're just techniques that create a certain type of commitment. And an information gap is there. So another thing he does is really creates this realm of possibility. So again, coaches do this as well, but Steve does a beautiful job of doing this in the book. He talks about his clients creating money with ease, right? He tells you about his own experience. So he's creating this possibility, going from, I didn't have any clients to I have lots of clients. I was lost and I met this incredible coach, right? My clients, most coaches don't make any money. My clients make a ton of money. So this drawing the sort of darkness and light from here to here and sort of painting this journey of possibility, again, is a brilliant sales technique. He's really seeding possibility in there in a really powerful way. Same thing that marketers do. He does it much more subtly. He does it with an incredible amount of skill. And it's very authentic, right? It's very authentic because he has a real desire to serve in this chapter. But again, understand that that's what's happening in the creation of this chapter. It's drawing you forward into the book in the same way that when you talk to people about commitment, having them get clear about the impact of who they're being now and what that's going to look like 5-10 years down the road, putting a picture of a gnarly lung and a box of cigarettes, which has a smoker get present of the impact of what it's like if you're going to smoke for years and years and years. That is a very effective technique to have people step into commitment and then creating the other side. What does possibility look like? What would be amazing? And so a lot of this stuff in the Prosperous Coach community, like marketing is bad, sales is bad, all that stuff, it's a bit of a misnomer. It's still there. It's just created in a particular way. The last thing that Steve does really well is a beautiful thing of identification with the problem. So he talks about the problem that coaches face. He sort of casts the training industries in a bit of a bad light, like, oh, they're just charlatans and they're X, Y, and Z, and they do this, that, and the other thing. So again, if you are a person who's had that feeling of like, oh, I got a certification, but I didn't learn how to sell my business, which a lot of people who go through certification problems have, you're going to resonate with this. Oh yeah, you're right. They didn't help me out at all, right? Or when he talks about how most coaches aren't making money, it creates a sort of like, oh, okay, it's not my fault, right? I'm just one of those other people. So again, really beautiful, powerful marketing and sales techniques in these early chapters that you can learn a ton from if you pay attention to. But also, if you're one of these coaches that are like, oh, the Prosperous Coach, it's so great, it doesn't do any sales or any marketing, it's totally in here. You just have to pay attention to it. And again, notice how when they use it and it doesn't bother you, that's what's possible for your own coaching and your own sales. A couple other things it's missing, or I guess the one other big thing it's missing is, it tends to oversimplify both coaching and success. So part of the brilliance of the whole book, The Prosperous Coach, is how simple it is and how straightforward it seems. And that's part of why it's such a successful book. The chapters are very short. It breaks down knowledge into really very essentialist, which is really powerful. I love that about the book. It's really incredible in the way that, thanks for your quote, by the way, Phil. I'm going to actually read Phil's comment here. Phil says, I love this idea of the desire to coach isn't enough. A quote I love around this is Brian Kurtz that I really resonate with is, it is irresponsible to bring your product or service to marketplace without the same passion with which you created it. Another way to put it is, as long as you're working in the spirit of making a big impact, sell hard. The assumption being you're coaching at a level that can actually make an impact. Love the message here. Yeah, really key here, very important as well, right? Like bring the same level of attention and desire to creating or coaching as you do to sales. And I think that people miss, right? People tend to fall off on either side of this. They either come from, I need to sell, only sell all the time, right? Or I just only need to become a great coach and I'm going to skew selling. It's becoming masterful and bringing the same level of passion and mastery to both of them at the same time. Really, really key and really important. So kind of getting back to the point I was making a minute ago, which is that the brilliance of the Prosperous Coach is it simplifies coaching. It simplifies sales in some ways. It simplifies what it means to be successful. And that's the power, but it's also its problem. There is a lot of very simple concepts that are actually incredibly deep inside the Prosperous Coach. Part of why I'm doing this series is that I will read a chapter of the Prosperous Coach, and I've talked to other coaches about this chapter or that chapter. And what I get, what a really masterful coach will get out of that chapter is a lot more than what a journeyman coach will get out of it. And it has to do with the way we read and the way we listen. And part of what I talk about a lot in the dojo, what I'm going to talk a lot about in the mastermind, is there's a way in which a really great coach looks and reads and extracts information and relates to information in a particular way. You can actually train yourself to do this. But part of the challenge of the Prosperous Coach is some people read it and get a ton out of it. Some people read it, but they don't get everything out of it that's there. And so my hope is that by sort of uncovering this or decoding it a bit, you guys will get a better sense of what's actually there, what's actually available. So again, great chapter, largely a bit of a sales pitch, this chapter, but the key point that Steve's making here, and these are the big takeaways you want to take from this. One, coaching and enrolling both matter. Right? You really need to do both. Being great at a coach isn't enough, and just enrolling isn't enough, right? So a lot of coaches that get basic training, they go out to sell, and they don't know why it doesn't work, or they read the Prosperous Coach, they don't understand why it doesn't work. If you're going to use the Prosperous Coach technique, which is a good technique, focused on service, focused on building relationships. What I love about it is it's a great place for coaches to start. Very, very simple. Go out and have conversations. Nothing wrong with the other techniques, niching, marketing, much more of a marketing focused technique. Prosperous Coach is primarily a relationship building sales technique in the way that it does. You can start with very little experience. You go out and learn a ton. It's a great beginning technique for most coaches in their business. But the key thing here to remember is both your coaching and enrolling matter. You need to be constantly improving. You need to bring passion to your coaching. You need to be improving yourself. Go beyond the certifications, really study and understand how masterful coaches learn. go, download the coaching canvas from the Samurai Coaching Dojo website, use that to study and understand great coaching. You can use that model to analyze anybody's coaching at all. It's a great tool for doing that. Really, really improve and hone your coaching. And then also learn how to coach people around commitment, learn how to coach people to make the kind of big commitments that actually change lives. And then lastly, as you go back and read The Prosperous Coach, pay attention to how the book enrolls you into the idea of the book, right? There is, I remember I used to go to Rich's event. A lot of the events I would just be enamored with Rich, and he's so great. And then later on, as I was working with him and in Fort BC, I started going to the events and simply looking for how does he create events in a way that enrolls people in possibility. Because I would actually argue that Rich is better at enrolling than is actually at coaching. His coaching is fine. Sometimes he doesn't do what I would traditionally call coaching. He actually enrolls people in their own possibility. But I would say he's almost better at enrolling than he is at coaching, and not dissing him on either side, but his enrollment is really powerful. His events really enroll people in the idea of the prosperous coach and this way of doing coaching. And the book does a beautiful job of enrolling people in this way of selling through relationships. So go back and read the book again, and don't read it from how's it impacting me or what's the value he got. Read it in a study in how to enroll people into possibility. Because if you pay attention, they use really, really brilliant things here. Okay, bit of a short live today. Yeah, but I'm okay with that. If you like these, if you have questions about this stuff, please comment below. I'm going to put this stuff on YouTube as well. I'd love, you can go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to do that, I'm going to start to post more stuff there. And if you want to come on and get coached live or know someone who wants to get coached live, I'm going to keep doing these Coaching Dojo lives on Monday. And I'm going to mix them in with a little bit of this decoding along with live coaching as well. Thanks so much for being a coach. I really appreciate you choosing this life-changing profession. And I was deeply inspired by The Prosperous Coach, an incredible book, and reminded me about why I'm a coach, that if you get to be a coach, it's just an incredibly rare opportunity. And that rare opportunity deserves for you to put the honor into becoming a great coach and learning to enroll with incredible skill. So please go out and keep doing that. People need your help now more than ever in their lives. Don't give up. It is possible to be a successful coach. It is possible to become a really incredible coach if you keep applying yourself and use the right tools and techniques. And I'm honored that you came and listened to me today talk about that. All right, with that, I'm going to end the live, and be well.